Off the end of the bat. Fair ball! Watch out! No. Now Sable's overrun the bag at second. And he's out. That's going to end the inning.
I learned from it, but yeah, my takeaway from it is, probably a little over aggressive there. Just keep my head up and make sure I pick up the third base coach and see JD in front of me, because he was stayed at third. Probably would have stayed at second, obviously, if I picked him up early enough.
Now back to the morning roast with Vontae and Shasky.
Oh boy, oh boy, Blake Sable running into that out. But you know what? Don't let it put a damper on the weekend. The Giants didn't win the series.
I mean, it's
they won 2 or 3
to
against the Diamondbacks. They won 3 or 4 against the Padres. Blake Sable with that mistake there. Would have been very interesting to see what happens had he not made that base-running blunder.
That's 3 straight series wins against NL West opponents. I believe, is that 4 with Colorado?
Yeah.
Because they won the Colorado one prior to that. So
I think 11-2 against the NL West this month.
Yeah, they've been excellent. On that play, though, I just really quickly, when you're the back runner and there's a guy in front of you, all right, 1 base ahead of you, you always have to be cognizant of where they are. You cannot run that guy off the base. It's like the number 1 thing. Number 2, if you don't see the ball and you can't locate the ball, because this whole thing, run with your head down. Yeah, from home to first. But once you're on the base pass, you have to be cognizant of where the ball is in relation to where you are on the base pass, and then pick up your third base coach. Right? So running with your head down, you're not looking at the ball, nor are you looking at the base coach, and nor are you cognizant of where the guy is in front of you. It's just a really unfortunate play by Blake Sable. It's like straight up Little League poor base running, and that really is frustrating.
He had an rough day, 0 for 3 yesterday.
I love the dude, though.
1 walk. But can you play the highlight against Padoni? Because I can't get over Crooked Kite. Here it is, NBC Sports.
Off the end of the bat. Fair ball! Watch out! No. Now Sable's overrun the bag at second.
And all you little leaguers that are out there, when 2 guys are on 1 base, don't throw the ball. Run at them.
We get all that. But can we find the humor in this? They became fans, Crooked Kite, immediately saying that from the booth.
Yeah.
Oh, what? Watch out! And then oh, no. And you see Blake Sable just put his head down and put his head
It can't happen. It just can't happen.
One more time, but don't the humor in it.
It just can't happen.
Off the end of the bat. Fair ball! Watch out!
Hey,
no.
They turned into fans. Watch out, Blake.
That's why we love them.
Oh, no.
Vontae, we got picked off yesterday, I think 4 or 5 times on the bases. Nothing frustrates me more than getting a guy on base or multiple guys on base and having a rally completely crushed by poor base running. It's
a shame. It's embarrassing.
It's so deflating. It's so deflating. It kills a rally.
That was hilarious, man. That was pretty funny. But you know what? The Giants do bounce back.
JD Davis, by the way, quietly getting back into form. Big for them.
He's playing well. Giants 44-34. 2.5 back of the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I truly believe they may be a couple arms away from competing for the National League crown right now. They're second in the wild card behind Miami, who is playing very well. A lot of surprises there. Philadelphia is coming on strong. The Cubs split in London. The National League turned into a fun league this year. Cincinnati in first place in the NL Central, but I got you, Lutman. I was just about to go there.
Lutman hasn't said 5 words to us all day.
Jeez. So excited about Marc Delucci. Hey, Marc Delucci, you got a high bar to clear here. Covers the Giants for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. I love you, Marc. I'm just kidding. Good morning. I'm excited to have you back on the Morning Roast with Sam Lubman has talked you up for months. So you better deliver, Marc. No, I'm kidding. No
Sam is, I guess, giving me a little too much hype here. I gotta bring the expectations down before we get into it. No, but I'm glad to join you guys.
No, I followed your work at Twitter, man. You do a great job covering the Giants, man, and they're hot right now. And I know you're so plugged in on the Giants farm system. You've written for Niners Nation, Go to State of Mind. So you know the Bay Area landscape very, very well. All right, the Giants, though. Number 1, they're exceeding expectations. I think our expectations. But 2, you see some youngsters starting to flash here. So where do you think the Giants are? Can they really do this and maybe shift their expectations and shift the goalposts from saying, hey, we just want to develop, bring in youngsters to maybe competing for something bigger?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think the organization, and I think, as much criticism as Farhan Zaidi has gotten, some of it deserved. I think some of it perhaps a bit ahead of the curve heading into the season. I think, though, I think a lot of fans were skeptical and thought this was performative. I never got the sense that the organization didn't view this year within the context of we believe we can compete for the division and, maybe not replicate 107 wins like in 2021. Right. But I don't think within the organization they viewed their expectations for this year, I think, were very similar to the expectations they had for the team going into last season. Obviously, they got off to that really slow start, and they stumbled out of the gate. And so that kind of led to some promotions of guys like Schmidt and Bailey and Matos. But, I think they've always been sort of viewing this year as, no, the Dodgers took a big step back. They seem to be doing a kind of retool, again, going cheap in the context of the Dodgers, not in the context of baseball, for, setting up for Shohei. And so I think they've always seen that path there. I mean, you can imagine if the Diamondbacks stumble out of the gate, the Giants are, cruising right now, looking at the top spot in the division. So, I think they viewed it as they can compete for a pennant. They can compete to win the National League. And I think this past month has proven to them, right? They have the best record in the league since May 1st, right? We're at basically 2 months of baseball that you can say they've been the best team in the league from just a win-loss perspective. So I absolutely think they, if they did ever shift to viewing this as a rebuilding year, which again, I think there was some nerves in there when they were seeing, the team stumble out the gate for sure. Those have gone to the wind, and they're absolutely looking at, yes, we have young talent, but that young talent is here to help us win now, and we'll deal with the future in the offseason. It
just feels like, and I know Schmidt got rightfully got a lot of the headlines early on, but if we're talking about like sustainability, and we'll get to Matos in a second, like, I really think the Patrick Bailey call-up is the one that's changed everything for the pitching staff. Defensively, he's so much better than Sable, and I would even say even Joey Bart. And then offensively, he's just kind of a throwback. Bat on ball, runners in scoring position. He's going to knock a guy in with either a ground out to second, a fly ball out to the outfield. He's a real throwback player. Like, I'm looking at a guy, Posey's obviously the greatest catcher in Giants history, but this is like a throwback 1980s. He's going to be here a decade-long catcher. Doesn't it feel like that to you?
I'll say, I mean, again, you guys mentioned I've covered the farm system. That's been the biggest surprise, and that's one where, he's been an above average big league catcher pretty much across the board. Again, the defense is weird with Bailey. Like, he definitely makes, his upside defensively is by far better than Bart's from what we've seen, and he's made some incredible plays. That said, again, he does still, again, there's some, I think, he's really good at framing, but I think he can overemphasize that at time, and it leads his blocking to kind of slack from time to time, and he has some pass ball wild pitch issues. But his offense has been incredible for a catcher. I mean, right, like, as bad as Joey Bart was, as has sort of been in the context of expectations. If you look at Joey Bart last season, his triple slash was about the league average triple slash for catchers. Catchers in the modern big leagues just don't hit very much. Bailey has an above average slash line for anyone. And so that does so much for your lineup, right? That's part of the magic of the 2021 Giants. It wasn't just Posey being excellent. Again, Kurt Casale was really good, right? They were in that platoon. And that just gives so much more depth to your lineup. Again, with Bailey, the one thing that's so weird is that what's carrying his offensive performance is what he's doing against left-handed pitching. He has 3 homers. He's hitting, I think he has like a 1,500 or like a 1,200 OPS against lefties. And in the minors, he hit 100 against lefties. It was notorious. Scouts were saying he has to give up hitting right-handed. He's JT Snow. And so basically what's carrying this sort of from being just a solid hitter, kind of, solid bottom of the lineup guy, to being like a 5-6 hitter almost, is this, what he's crushing left-handed pitching. And if he sustains that, then you're talking about a guy who potentially you could see having like a Yasmani Grandal type career, which is an all-star caliber catcher. But, if that takes a step back, then again, it's still a valuable piece for sure, and it's absolutely done a lot to stabilize the lineup.
Marc Delucchi here on the Morning Roast, doing a great job covering the Giants for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. All right, we talk about the starting pitching, and we saw DeSclafani struggle yesterday, and then he settled in, but Alex Wood struggled last Thursday, only going 3 innings and getting rocked by the Padres. It's apparent that the Giants need some arms. Is there anybody in the farm system that could help them this season and help them compete at a high level? We know about Kyle Harrison, and we know it's not ready yet, but is there any other arms that could help the Giants this season?
I don't think so. I mean, like, I know Carson Wisenhunt is probably a name that people would like to throw around and throw in there. Mason Black's picked it up at AA. You could maybe see. I don't think, though, in terms of starting pitching. I mean, to be honest, right, like, I think you've seen them already if they are, right? It's Tristan Beck, Keaton Wynn are probably the two I would have named a month ago. And obviously at this point, they've been used in this kind of long reliever swingman role. I mean, again, I think, look, the Giants paid Sean Manaea and Ross Stripling this offseason, and I think there's, again, Manaea's kind of been better since he settled into this long relief role. I think, again, Stripling, they believe his back issue was causing him more issues early in the season and was the reason for that poor performance. I think Stripling's going to come back being kind of this, bulk innings long reliever role, but I think there's a hope that Stripling comes back and can kind of fill in that fifth spot or fourth spot, depending on how Alex Wood does here. But, I don't think there's really, I do think Harrison could help stabilize the situation too, and I think the Giants are hopeful of that as well. But outside of that, I really don't think there's something internally that, at least right now, I can say, yeah, this player's on a trajectory to be able to help in July, August, September, at least right now.
So we're thinking external, because I'm looking at this rotation, like, to think that Cobb is going to sustain this, maybe that's aggressive. DeSclafani, he frustrates me a lot. The good and bad versions of him all within one start. Alex Wood, I have very little faith in right now. I know Ross Stripling's coming back from the IL right now. I think he was activated this morning. I don't know, man. This rotation internally right now just is right? And they feel legit. Like, the team feels legit, and the rotation feels so meh. I'm just being honest.
A yuck and a meh.
I don't think you're wrong. And again, the fan base agrees with you. I interact with them often.
I mean, it's one dude basically, right? And like a bunch of prayers.
I think, and again, we can get into the names. It's Marcus Stroman, Eduardo Rodriguez. Maybe a guy like James Paxton or something.
Oh, wait! You brought up Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Hey, I like. Hey, under team control for a couple years too. If he opts into his contract, I like where your head's at.
Too. I like that too.
Rodriguez is kind of in the same place as Stroman, right? Where if you trade for them and they're good, they're probably gonna opt out. So it can kind of be viewed as a downside, because if he blows out his elbow in September, he's gonna opt in, and then you're paying him for next year when he doesn't play. But it's kind of like the situation that it worked against the Giants with Carlos Rodon last deadline, right? Where buyers were, Rodon may have been a top-line starter, but there was concerns given his history. I'm going to trade for Rodon. He's going to be a free agent if he's good, and then if he gets hurt in August or whatever, then we're on the hook for whatever. But, yeah, I know. I like Eduardo Rodriguez a lot. There's also the connection. Scott Harris, right, former Giants GM, is now running the show in Detroit. I think there's a deal you could kind of build there. I think, frankly, I think a guy like David VR, who's kind of on the outskirts of the Giants depth right now. Again, not the centerpiece. I want to be clear. I think you're looking at a prospect like Grant McCray, a prospect like Iverson Arteaga, maybe a Mason Black, and then a guy like VR and Sean Jelly, which also helps the Giants kind of alleviate some of the pressure on the 40-man roster.
Yes.
Open up some roster flexibility. And for Harrison Detroit, he can pluck a couple guys from his previous organization that he thinks can contribute who've kind of fallen out of favor here. So, yeah, I think that's one I'd eye a lot. But the one thing I'll say is this. Giants fans are frustrated with rotation. I get it. I have a lot of the same questions. But there isn't a fan base in the National League that doesn't feel that way. There's really a fan base in MLB right now. I mean, you look at starting pitching depth around baseball. Part of this is just a function of the way player development has changed in recent years. Everyone is desperate for starting pitching. And I would argue in the National League, there are maybe 1-2 contenders that have a rotation that I'm more confident in than the Giants.
Atlanta.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I maybe Miami, but again, even
Miami's got the two.
A step back.
Miami's tough.
They got the
Miami's
two hogs
tough
at the top, man. Those guys look really promising.
To his point, though, the Giants are right there if they make the right move to make a big time move in the National League. I'm kind of with you here, Mark. Eduardo Rodriguez is a name if you can't get Shane Bieber. I'm not sure about the other names here, but
Lucas Giolito?
Yeah, maybe. It may cost a lot.
I know. They need something, not just for this year, next year, too.
I'll say this, right? This is the thing, right? It depends on what prospects you're willing to give, right? The big name is going to be Dylan Cease with the White Sox, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a case is, are you willing, can you build are you willing to part with a Harrison, or are you willing to, can you build a package around Luciano and Wisenhunt? That becomes the question.
No.
Right? Because again, the Giants aren't the only team that is going to be wanting starting pitching. And so, again, when you look at the rentals, that becomes guys like Giolito, Jordan Montgomery with the Cardinals, another name. Again, James Paxton, who's been hurt a lot, but when healthy is very good with the Red Sox. Like, those are players who, won't cost as much in prospect capital, but, there's a reason they're rentals most of the time, right? I mean, again, I guess Stroman and Eduardo Rodriguez, you can kind of put in that camp as well, but that's a different scenario.
So Mark, let's two quick outfielders. The first one, Matos. This guy, just the way he tracks down balls in center field, he just looks the part. And then obviously the plate discipline is elite, and he looks like he has tools to be a decade-long center fielder. I'm loving what I'm seeing thus far. But is there another youngster that can maybe crack this lineup at some point this year? Like, is Luciano legit? Because I'm looking at AAA. They don't really have any outfielders. I mean, outfield looks really thin at AAA, and I got a feeling he's going to get called up at some point soon. Is he legit for this year, or is it just Matos going to be the only youngster in the outfield this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think a name I'd actually be watching is Tyler Fitzgerald. He's a guy who he was drafted as a shortstop out of Louisville, has been developed as an infielder. But I was, I'll say scouts have kind of been comparing him to Chris Taylor for the past couple years at times. The Dodgers outfielder who was developed as an infielder in this super versatile piece, power hitting right-handed back. The issue with him was strikeout rates, making contact. And he went back. He repeated Richmond at the start of this year, and he slashed the strikeout rates quite a bit. He's up at AAA now, hitting quite well. And I think last week, for the first time, the Giants started playing him in the outfield. So I think Tyler Fitzgerald would be the guy I'd watch on that front. But again, that's not going to be a game-changing piece, right? Like, that's a utility bat, right-handed, kind of supplement if Slater goes down or something like that. Again, look, the fact is, you walked into the season. Right, and you're asking, if we're talking in February, you're asking me who are the Giants who could maybe make an impact this year? Who are the big name prospects? Right, the names are going to be Luis. It's probably going to be Harrison. It's probably going to be Schmidt. And then the maybes are going to be a Bailey or a Matos or a Luciano. Again, Luciano's still a really good prospect. I still think he's going to take a year, and a big part of that's just he doesn't have a defensive home yet. They've I think made the smart decision of giving him a chance to develop a shortstop because that's obviously the most valuable position for him. I still don't think that's where he's going to end
he's
up.
A right fielder.
So, let me ask you this.
I mean, he might be a left fielder, he might be a third baseman, he might be a first baseman or a DH. I'm not necessarily, but yeah, the point is he's going to have to figure that out. So I don't think he's going to be too in play this year unless he just crushes it and they say, screw it, we'll just have him DH.
Mark, before we let you go, and we're talking to Marc Delucchi, he covers the Giants for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. Obviously, you interact with a lot of fans, and you see Twitter and the timeline and how fans react. If the Giants do not make a move, how frustrating will it be for Giants fans? Will they be able to accept that, seeing how well they're playing since May 1st? Which is crazy to think about. When we came into the season, we didn't think nothing of this team. Now if the focus shift and the goalposts change to where Giants fans will be irate if they didn't make a move.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, to be quite frank, I think the fan base is actually way too kind of nervous about making a move because I think, there's the fan base, it's a tendency of fan bases to fall in love with prospects. Not that prospects aren't valuable, but I think there's a lot of folks who see Schmidt and Bailey and, Matos and even Luciano turning things around at AA over the past month and things like that, and they're like, no, we got the future. Let's just sit. I don't want to trade a Grant McCray. I don't want to trade any of these guys. I trust our farm system. And I think you take the chances you get when you're a contender. To me, you always trust your development to be able to find guys later on. Again, it bit Bobby Evans and Brad Sabian from time to time, but I think that mindset. And to be fair, again, that's what Zaidi and company did in 21. Right? They went and traded for Chris Bryant, and they give up some pretty valuable prospect capital to do it, even though he was going to be a free agent. So I think the Giants fan base wouldn't necessarily mind it because they would just view it as that means Kyle Harrison's going to be our trade deadline acquisition, right? Like things like that. And again, it depends on obviously where the standings are. If the standings are where they are right now, I think that would be a mistake from the Giants standpoint. I think they have a deep farm system right now. They have a lot of depth, which should enable them to make moves that even if they give up a valuable prospect, even if it's a prospect who goes on to become a good player, they should have other guys or other options to be able to withstand that in the coming seasons, which is why I'd be aggressive out there.
All right. There we are, Marc Delucchi.
Good stuff, Mark.
Not bad. Not bad. I think we may have you back on. Marc Delucci covers Sports Illustrated, covers the Giants for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. Not bad, Mark.
I love it.
All right, on occasion. All right, appreciate it.
All right, we'll give Lubman a high five for that booking. Right there. Mark, good stuff, man. Seriously,
good stuff.
We appreciate the time.
All right, good morning, guys. See you later.
Anytime. Marc Delucci covering the Giants for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. And